We're doing it. Good morning. Good morning, hospitality. This is exciting. Gentlemen, are you ready to rock and roll and do this thing? You got your coffee?
I got my coffee.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit it. Let's do this thing. All right. That's our intro. I love it. Such a good upbeat song. Goes with the caffeine. I love it. Well, gentlemen, I think this is a fun and great way to start the show. For all those that are actually tuning in live right now, feel free to comment in the comment box where you're watching from, who you are. Say hello to myself and my awesome co-host, the Michaels. We're talking about a cool topic today, but I want to start off. Let's do Ross and Golden. Let's do describe yourself in like 10 or less words on who you are and what you do. So we'll go with Ross
10
first.
words. Yeah, I'll do 10 words. Almost 10. Hi, my name is Michael. Indeed, I'm CEO and founder of Bidroom.com. A Bidroom is a membership booking platform. We're disrupting the market. So actually, I'm combining my passion for technology and travel together. And then good to be here.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I counted 42 words, but I'm Michael Golden. I'm the Director of Business Development for NoiseAware. I've been in the short-term rental space for 6+ years at this point, so seen quite the evolution throughout the past 6 years.
Awesome.
Okay.
And
44.
yeah, I was saying. Awesome. And I'm Will Slickers. I'm host of obviously Good Morning Hospitality and Slick Talk the Hospitality podcast with a hotel and vacation rental background. So I think we have a unique panel or hosts for the show. It's kind of the reason why we teamed up. We got a little bit of hotels, a little bit of vacation rentals, and it's a good combination. So today's topic, Covidprenruers and ApartHotels. So I think it's a pretty interesting topic for our first episode because we've been seeing a little bit of news come out about this, but the Covidpreneur type deal is, I think a lot of people have lost their jobs with, COVID and since March and April. But this quarter, 1.5 million people have applied for their business, tax ID number and all this type of stuff. And that's about a 77.4% increase from last quarter, as well as the most that the Wall Street Journal has seen in over a decade. So I'm curious to know how many of them are in hospitality or travel.
How many companies have been started in hospitality, or how many of those who've started a company were in hospitality?
How many of the 1.5 million are going to be in the hospitality industry?
I think in America, it's like 1 out of 10 people works in hospitality, right? So if you take this number, I think that people just lost their job for sure. It's more than that. But even already calculating 1 out of 10, it's still a massive number, right? Who just start something in this industry.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
1 out of 10.
I think a lot of people have found time on their hands to pursue the thing they've thought about pursuing for a long time. And whether it was forced by layoffs or furlough, or it was by design, I think in terms of what we're going to see coming out of it over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, it's going to be improvements. It's going to be probably a lot of consulting groups or individuals that team up and help boutiques run operations like Marriott does. Mm-hmm. But I think, 1 in 10 might work in hospitalities, but I think the numbers of people who were laid off or furloughed is more like a third of those that lost their jobs were in hospitality in the US, at least. Some crazy numbers.
Well, I think what Michael said, a lot of people just always had the dream maybe to start something for themselves, to go into consultancy, whatever. And it's always a bit scary, right? When it's okay, should I really give up my job, which gave me security. In this case, if you're losing your job, or if it's a furlough or layoff, or you have to do something, right? It's okay, why not give it a try now? Just give it a try. What I was dreaming about, nothing to lose actually in this moment anyway. So I'd really support this. I think it's so cool to start your own business, and this is the right moment. Even though it's maybe not the moment you choose for, chase it now and do it. So.
Well, we saw, 2008, we saw something very similar. A lot of entrepreneurs or people that had side hustles or just an idea, kind of like you're just talking about, like a dream. Like, you know what? I've always wanted to do this. I think we're kind of seeing the same thing, especially like for me, I've seen a lot of hospitality people with side hustles. And now, like you said, with furloughs and layoffs, it makes more sense for them to kind of pursue that more than ever. There's really no excuse now. They have the time. So I think that's the key factor, but we'll see what will actually happen is, they say about 50% of businesses don't even make it through their first year. So out of that 1.5 million, will this be, long-term type?
How many pursue after they get their jobs reinstated or find something more steady? Yeah, I've actually had a conversation with a couple of friends just the past month or so who are talking about starting their own business. A buddy and I had a drop shipping company shipping baby goods out of China. And once Corona broke out in January, February, nobody wanted baby goods coming from China. So we put it on pause. But it was really cool. I mean, the barrier to get started was zero. Drop shipping, there's no upfront costs. Like it's just an arbitrage. So.
Yeah, no, that's.
I just think what you said, 2008, right? If in a crisis you're getting creative, you just have to survive. So you can see 2008, I think we all know is the year of Airbnb. Discussing apartments later, but this is also a crisis. Often gives you a reason to start something, disrupt the market. But they're saying, and disruption actually often happens because of a crisis. So I'm really curious if new initiatives pops up. Okay, we started some time ago, but more and more we disrupting the market. But you can see more initiatives will come for sure. And I think it's also good. Something is ready for a change because of a crisis. So let's see what's happening in hospitality. But I think if there's some innovation going on and people can innovate in this area, I think they can have a good chance.
Yeah, and my biggest thing is I don't know how aware some of these Covidprenruers are of the steady paycheck does not exist when you're building something like that. So that's like the biggest thing for me is these are all great ideas, and hopefully, like you said, they are disrupting the market because unless you get a ton of funding, which we'll probably talk about here in a little bit with ApartHotels, but it's just with funding, without funding, it's pretty rough because you have to sacrifice a lot of the consistencies that we had before all this COVID stuff.
I know. Went through it all.
Some of the best businesses have to get scrappy before funding comes, and figuring out how to succeed early is setting a really good groundwork for the future.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I think that's a good point for our current topic of the day, which is apartment hotels and kind of that business model. Michael Golden, obviously, you had the great idea about this topic because I think it is something, like you said, that is not covered to the point of scalability. We haven't seen this at huge scale like a Marriott or Hilton or IHG or whatever may be. So this is kind of an interesting one to go about. But why do you think, we'll just start off the question, why do you think we haven't seen something scale like this?
Well, Michael, coming from the hotel world, probably has a better idea of why the ApartHotel segment hasn't scaled. I think it's been successful in certain markets and certain locations, but it's challenging to do at scale, multinational, and be a consumer brand. The consumer brands of Marriott, for example, are 90 years old. People probably hadn't heard of Marriott in its first 5 years. And really those doing urban multifamily, apart hotel style inventory haven't been around for longer than 5 or 6 years. We saw a number of them go away during COVID because of their business model and how much capital it took to flow. And when the money stopped coming in, it certainly hurt a lot of businesses. But it's really exciting last week to see a couple companies raise some pretty serious money, both in debt and equity, to go build their brand and see if they can pull off a consumer apart hotel brand.
Yeah, that's true. And it's I guess, like you said, there's the one thing we're talking about is the consistency of it. And I think that's another big factor. There's a ton of factors that go into maybe why it's not scaled or hasn't been scaled to that point, to that extent. And consistency and, like you just said, brand is pretty key.
Well, I think it's image, it's development, it's education, it's multiple things, right? You see in hotel people studying for it for years to be a front office employee or general manager, revenue manager, etc. And this is lacking or is not there in vacation rental yet. You can see, for example, ApartHotels still has the image like, is it a hotel? Is it an apartment? It has a different kind of like image, of course, than a hotel. If you say I'm working in a 4 or 5 star hotel Marriott, it's completely different than say I'm working in an apart hotel. So it's also, I think, it's image, and I think it's also if it will be a strong brand, I think it could help you, because you can see, of course, Accor starting with a Dojo, they have some, but still you're missing really still brands. And I think, we pre-discussed it a bit before. I think there will be for sure time when somebody says, okay, I've got multiple properties, why not branding it? Because still, I think image is still a difficulty, and really to create image outside, but I think it's also inside, right? The property, they look identical in the way of controlling, management, security, etc. So there's still a lot to do in this area to become, when it comes so professional that you can really scale it to a brand.
Yeah. So there's 2 points to that, Will. I think first of all, Glenn Fogel, Booking CEO, said in an interview recently that 40% of Booking's new reservations are coming from the short-term rental sector, not the hotel sector. So previously, those who had traveled, something like 35% of people had stayed in rentals, and that's it of those who travel. So it was still a pretty small market share, but COVID, with either hotels being shut down or rentals being easier to get and more comfortable for travelers, people are now booking short-term rentals at a higher rate. Previously, it was like 20%. So nearly double the new bookings are going to rentals. So it's a bit of an education process. It's a bit of a, it's weird staying in someone else's house. Once you do it, though, people stick around and want to, they enjoyed having that extra space or that extra bedroom or whatever. And then the second thing is, when I stay in a Marriott, I know that the room I stay in New York is going to be the same as it is in Atlanta, the same as it is in London. The consistency is amazing, and you know what product you're going to get. With rentals, you almost want a bit of a more unique experience to feel like you're in an apartment that somebody would live in that town, in that city. Whether it's a shoebox in New York or a sprawling 34 bedroom in Miami. I think travelers that are going to be staying places for more than a day or two, like to have a little bit more of that experience.
Well, you know what to expect, right? People sometimes are afraid for what they don't know. And if you stay for what Michael says, he always stays in a Marriott, you know what kind of bed, that you always have the pillows. So it feels comfortable. The food in the restaurant is okay. I think now, of course, when Glenn Fogel said the case, the short-term rental is doing well. I think it's also, of course, related to the world we're living now. You can see you don't want to stay in a massive queue on the buffet breakfast. You just want to have your your own place where you could cook if needed. You stay often when you go with your family, you want to stay together. So it is different now nowadays anyway. So I think hotels are sacrificing and they have more difficulties now than the short-term rental. You see how short-term rental, you have of course many places on the countryside, you need a beach, near the shore, etc. These places are still popular. They're all fully booked now. And it's more difficult to build huge hotels near those sites sometimes. So it's to find a place which suits now what make you feel safe. Often you come now to a vacation rental because you don't want to avoid. Also, it's the numbers of contacts which you have, right? In a short-term rental, you're receiving maybe a code before you can enter, and that's it. You don't have to go to a lobby where you see other people, where people's queuing behind each other. So all those things people think about now those days. So
and if you look at the longevity of the industry and of travel in general, it was getting a little out of hand in 2019, especially in a lot of European cities. The amount of complaints these cities were trying to figure out how to affect tourism. But if you build these apart hotel buildings, you can flex them during a crisis or during peak tourism or whatnot. If it's built like an apartment, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, then if tourism goes away, those can become residence housing. And if residents, in San Francisco, for example, there's a mass exodus of people who live there because all these big companies are going remote. Now those units could be short-term rentals. So now they don't have to build new hotels, and it's actually sustainable development.
Yeah, and I think just like we're seeing now with our show, with us, we're a hybrid of people in the industry, vacation rentals, hotels, and one person that's in both. I think we're going to see that hybrid model a lot. And one thing I've been talking about is you just made a great point, is that they have that option, they have that flexibility now that is so pivotable during crisis or in great economic times. And one thing I think, hotels, they scale up their rooms on top of rooms. My idea for the future is where I see is going to be hotels going more horizontal than up because of COVID. What we're realizing, people don't want to wait in lines. They want that experience where they can just get a mobile digital code on their phone or even a keyless, Bluetooth scan. But still have that sense of community. So like still have like a community spot where they can go grab drinks or have a fire or still have that time that we all love when it comes to travel. But I think we're going to see the hybrid way more than we expect.
Well, it's the flexibility now, right? I just normally every year when with my family, we just go for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. You go to a hotel and just stay in a nice place. This year was completely different already. Staying for multiple weeks, even longer somewhere else. They going outside, they go to the beach, and I'm staying inside, unfortunately, to work. So, but this is changing, right? And you can see, and I'm not the only one. You can see, I think half the office they were from different places all over the world. They went back to the family, work from there. Combined actually work with holiday, and why not? So it's also, I think a lot of things change now. You can see more digital nomads, the way of working. It is kind of the new normal. You can see hotels are even changing more to the space. Okay, user space as well for working, but especially long stay. You don't want to be in a hotel room, right? If it stays longer, you see the average stay, I think, is increasing anyway. You just want to have a bit space, and space you can find in a short-term rent or an apartment more than in a general hotel room.
Yeah, I think the word of 2020 is flexible. So you've got flexible work hours, flexible work locations.
Yeah.
Hotels are becoming flexible by trying to put in WeWork type of co-working spaces. Your buildings no longer can be single use. They have to serve multiple purposes. Apart hotels, brands like Sonder went 40, 50, 60% midterm, and they were housing nurses or housing, emergency workers. So being able to flex your inventory, it seems like it's going to be crucial moving forward. Now, I think it's hard sometimes to make predictions when you're in the middle of a crisis, but a year from now, 2 years from now, what trends are going to stick? I think the flexible workforce trend is likely to stick for forever at this point. And then travel, like people want a little bit more space, a little bit more comfort because they're flexible. Maybe they can turn that 2-day business trip into a 4-day business leisure trip. So it certainly opens up a lot of different opportunities for those of us in travel, but you just got to be a little nimble to navigate.
Agreed. And it's like the age of the digital nomad. Plus, I think, like we're seeing with this article that we were kind of focusing the episode on today was, Kasai, or I think that's how you say it. I might be butchering it. It's like my weakness as a podcaster is pronouncing things. But, the raising $48 million in a Series A funding and bringing that like luxury apartment feel that we all know, like a comfort type style, but then is very on off switch for travel, so, to have as a operated hotel. And I like to think of it as like, you think of like Residence Inns or something, a brand like, that I don't like in California. I follow this company called Proper Hotels, and they have the option for people to own specific suites, and but you don't live there full time. You're traveling, and when you're not there, your room's pretty much being rented. So it's a unique model, and I think when it comes to people working remotely and doing those business leisure stays, they're starting to see that, and they're starting to be like, okay, this is something that I want to do. Like, I like this lifestyle. It becomes that type of lifestyle in the sense of you have, I guess, keyword flexibility. You have that flexibility of being at home or traveling. And I think that's what it's fitting the mold pretty much.
Well, you can see, especially most of them, they're more in the luxury space, right? So luxury space, upscale, because still, I think when you want to go on holiday, now business travel, it's limited, right? But you want to go on holiday, if I go, and I think both you can confirm, I think other listeners as well, you want to go a place which is normally nicer than your own house, because otherwise you don't go on holiday, right? So you want like a different experience. So you see brands which offer like more like a boutique experience, still homely, but still luxury. You can see with Kasai, you can see with Sonder, with kind of other places, they're doing well. And they will do well eventually because they're unique, and still it's something better than what you find daily.
Yeah. Oh, this is a comment we just got on the live. So thank you guys for commenting and, engaging with us. It's exciting for our first episode. But branded residences are experiencing surge. So Mandrina, Fairmont, and all these other ones are expanding. Brands like Selena are playing into that demand too. And I agree. I think
you again, are bad at pronouncing things, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm bad. Plus, I'm reading on the fly, so my bad. But yeah. Anyways, I think it's a very, I'm just gonna ignore it. You know what?
No,
I mean.
A lot of and it plays into what Michael was saying, that travel, you tend to go up a scale from what you're used to. I certainly want to stay somewhere that's cleaner than my house. I have 3 dogs and a baby. So my house is always a mess, but the Mandarin or Fairmont and Ritz-Carltons, all these residences exist in some cities. The W is another one. I'm a big fan of the W.
Yeah.
The residences are super cool, super modern. They always have great cocktail bars or some sort of restaurant attached to it. And when you stay in the W, it's going to be a cool place in the best part of town. And that's what I think is missing in the apart hotel world, is branded locations. And we saw Nido, try to do it there for a second. I think that model will exist at some point. We're not too far out, but once the hotels especially start getting into and being more well known about the fact that they have not just hotel rooms, but places that you have a kitchen and an extra bedroom for a friend or for the baby or whatever, it's gonna really take off.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was mentioned Selena, and I think it's a great example in what they're doing, right? That they're combining in their, even when you looking now at what they're offering, monthly stays, try to go to long term because to fill the hotels, combining the work, they have a nomad passport, etc. So they're really into innovation. That's something what I mentioned earlier in this podcast. I think the way the hotels, if they're innovating now in their stay and what they're offering, and I think Selena is doing this very well. They can come out much stronger. And some weeks ago, I had a different interview meeting, and it was all about innovation. And I think the hotels who can innovate now in creating a different kind of relationship with their customer, they can come out stronger. And yes, branding of brand could help. But I'm curious what's going to follow. We just mentioned the more traditional brands, right? They have to do something now as well. And I think you see them searching. They don't know exactly what to choose sometimes. You see Citizen M, they start with a membership model. I think Selena has something similar as well. I'm curious what the big brands, just call it the big five, for example, would do.
Yeah, well, so I think there's a couple key differences. Like the way you run operations and rentals is a lot more hands-off than it is in hotels. Cleaning takes twice as long because you have twice as much space. What I think the hotels have a big leg up on, and these are great examples by that were added in, but we've got big brands that have relationships with owners of these hotels that I think don't exist in the rental world yet. You know, Sonder's building relationships with developers, but these hotels have had relationships with developers who have proven track records and say, look, if we throw a Fairmont brand on this, we know Fairmont in Vancouver or Fairmont in Chicago performs this way. So Fairmont in, Amsterdam will do the same. So I think that, and that's why some of these short-term rental operators have to raise so much money from the get-go, is so they can build their brand and their reputation. Half of that Kasai funding was debt; it wasn't equity, so they could probably go buy a bunch of furniture, long-term lease a lot of properties. And hotels used to do that in the early days. It was big lease of buildings, 10-year lease or whatever. But once they had a really big proven model, then they could flip it over to a rev share, which is what Saunders is trying to do, what Front Desk is doing, what Vector is doing. So I think it's a bit of a maturation, and it's likely to end up in some acquisitions by hotel companies of some of these brands that know how to do it, and then they leverage each other's strengths and resources.
Well, so the founder of Kasai said, Kasai is founded by diversity in the industry of leaders in tech, design, and hospitality. Our investors remain confident in our ability to scale based off of our experience and unique knowledge in the Latin markets. But I would say, those three sectors, tech, design, and hospitality, are those enough to actually scale at that point? I think those are good foundations and pillars, but I think it's like you are saying, it's kind of going to go into more of a, there's still a lot of learning. There's still a lot of knowledge that has to come from, this type of experience. Plus, big companies like Marriott or Hilton or whatever, I've already been doing this for a long time in the sense of they don't need to, start from scratch.
Well, I think companies like Kasai, Sonder, they're more tech companies, right? So if you're looking at the Marriotts, they're really like branding companies, marketing companies, etc. So the whole way of approaching customer relation is different. So, and I think the ones in technology who just understand normally, and I don't want to talk about the other ones, but if you see the tech guys and new guys, they know exactly how to use data, what to do with data, etc. So I think there's advantages of Kasai, Sonder, etc. Really using data in the right way to create a relationship with their users, how to convert them, etc. So I think that's a big difference in tech companies and marketing companies.
And that's where it likely makes sense for a hotel to acquire one of these brands, because they both need each other. the hospitality you get in a hotel is typically significantly better than the hospitality you get in a rental. But the experience, like after I fly for 10 hours and I land in Amsterdam, the last thing I want to do is go to check in at a front desk, wait 5 minutes, ring the bell. Somebody comes up and it's like, oh yeah, sorry, your room's not ready. Let me, come back in an hour.
And then you have to fill in the form when you send all your information before. And then you have to fill in a form of 20 questions. And this is still, so yeah, this is again tech companies innovation compared with more traditional, right?
We also talk about transparency a lot, right? And I think, with that comment right there of having, getting in from a late flight, getting to the hotel and being, okay, my room's not ready. That's not transparent. You never know when it's going to be ready. Vacation rentals, and I think it's like a good segue for it, is that vacation rental models or that type of stuff, they're usually pretty on top of it with sharing that information at an instant gratification standpoint of your cell phone, versus hotels. It's like, hey, we'll call you. Being a front office manager and assistant GM myself from my past career before all the shows and stuff, is that's the guest never really knows. He check-in is at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. but at the end of the day it could be sooner, but they won't know that because there's no way of communicating at that speed with tech, like we see with vacation rentals like Sonder, and having that ability to have that instant communication with, it's like a virtual front desk agent in your pocket. So
once again, is flexibility, right? This is also what we addressed. I think in hotels it's sometimes so stuck to, okay, check in 2:00, you're leaving before 11. And it is sometimes so frustrating because you're arriving in the evening, but you might use, I had it last week, you're arriving in the evening, you're almost not using, you just sleep, and next morning I had to get out at 11, even though I prefer to use it 1:00 because I didn't want to sit in the lobby because it's difficult to keep the 1.5 meter distance. So in this case, then you have to upgrade, and I had to pay something extra for a late checkout. The hotel is completely empty, but I had to pay extra for a late checkout.
Yeah,
I think a hotel could make a difference. Right? It's okay, I know you checked in yesterday so late. It's fine. You can use you checked in 6 hours later than normal. You can keep the room 1 hour, 2 hours longer. And this, I think, the flexibility, what sometimes the homeowners, so the short-term rentals still do, because they want to have a great review, they want to have good recommendations. They're more flexible. And the hotels, they're sometimes too stuck to too many rules.
Yeah, it's a bit of the process is the death of you, right? Like, well, checkouts at 11, that means our cleaners need to be done by 12, and then the next renter the next guest can come in at 1. But in a rental, you get, oh yeah, I don't have anyone staying until tomorrow. Stay as late as you need to, please be out by 3 or 4 so my cleaners can get in there, right? It is a little bit more of a personalized approach or helpful when you can be, and that may not always be the case. But.
Well, from a hotel perspective, I get it, right? Because you have your schedules, your cleaners, etc. But for a user, for a customer, for a guest, this experience is different. So I can imagine the guest prefer this flexibility, and this drives him away from the hotels to the apartments.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I like this comment shows you that the hotel companies are definitely dipping their toe into this sector. So it's just kind of proven that we're going to see a lot more of, I think, like you said, the hotels are going to start playing with that flexibility game more than anything. They're going to start playing with the, I just don't know. I'm thinking of like a front desk perspective too, because, you have, let's say 70 units, you have 70 rooms in one property, and they're constantly being flipped. If you have a constant high occupancy, like Golden said, it's more of a like, hey, we can't be flexible on that because we have to get this room ready for the next guest within I think maybe
people
understand
that, right? Yeah. I mean, if it's fully occupied and it's slammed, like, okay, I get it, I need to be out. Like, but it's the Michael's experience of, the hotel's empty. No, you can't stay 2 more hours. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's a lack of hospitality. Anticipating the guest needs. You gotta get that in there at least. Just you can be flexible on that. There's a difference between flexibility, knowing when you can and can't do it, but then just being kind of like a jerk and not letting somebody, because it's like
Yeah.
11 o'clock and you're like, oh, well, it's checkout time.
Well, eventually, I think the hotels should make a shift. You can see the kind of the concept, like you can book rooms per hour that they use, etc.
Yeah.
Kind of platforms, right? I think this is also more common. Of course, your operations will be different. You have to change a few things. I think for hotel perspective, I think they can win a lot in there. But also, I think revenue-wise, you might even sell the room multiple times because you might just have a flight. You come back in the morning at 6 o'clock. You just want to get some rest for 5 hours before your meeting. Could be. This is also now you just not possible because the room is available at 2 o'clock and you had to inform them before because you had a late checkout, which was like 12 hours later than normal. So it is the flexibility. I think if hotels innovate, and you see some airport hotels that has the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what will happen in the hotel space after this. And I think now they can gain some advantage in those days to experiment with it.
Well, not to give any sneak peeks, but I interviewed a guest that is a director of sales and marketing in Chicago for a Sheraton brand. And they pivoted during this time. They're still open and operating in Chicago, but they started using dayuse.com and renting out whole floors for companies to do like kind of like that WeWork co-working space. And they're doing a lot more that wouldn't have really worked prior. And from my understanding, like I worked at a 716 room hotel. If I had anybody come in to try to use a room for day use, we just didn't have that capacity to do it. But now I think we're seeing hotels do when they change their operations. That's when it is working. That's when it's able to work, because when you keep the same operation schedule that you were doing for check-in, check-out time at 3 and 11, it just doesn't work. But if you change that, then we'll see more growth in that day use, multiple rental type deals.
Yeah. So I know we probably should wrap up in a second, but I want to touch on this Accor and Marriott comment. So what I think of the future with ApartHotels is brands, right? And neither Marriott or Accor are branding these products. Marriott's partnered with a bunch of property managers who have to have certain standards to let travelers in, but it's not a Marriott property, and it's not, you're not booking a building you're going to walk into that's flagged and consistent. And Accor, same thing with One Fine Stay. One Fine Stay is typically an urban, large unit operator who these flats usually aren't even full-time rentals. People own them and they just travel or split time between London and New York or something like that. It is a good start for those brands to get their toes in the short-term rental waters. And we've seen more. Hyatt had some investment in One Fine Stay before Accor bought it. Hyatt invested in a company called Oasis Collections. So we've seen Choice Hotels tried something similar to what Marriott's been successful at.
Yeah.
We've seen people try it. I think Marriott especially has done a really good job with it. And more to come. I would expect a lot of brands to follow them. But in terms of ApartHotels, you just got to expect a brand to buy an operator who can bring some of that knowledge in-house and then throw it under a flag.
Yeah.
For them, it's still scary, right? Because they want to experiment, they want to learn, but still they don't want to just push vacation rental because they are the last 10, 20, 100 years in the hotel space, right? So it's of course for them, it's not an easy move because you want to protect this whole hotel image and your experience around it, and not pushing the vacation rental. So for them, it's finding a balance in this, which is, I guess, not easy for them.
Yeah. Well, I just like what you said.
Well, it's actually why both Marriott and Accor went the route they're going, is because those types of inventories don't compete with their hotel ownership groups, right? The ownership groups are competing with the 1 bedroom and the 2 bedrooms, not the 6 bedroom beach house that Marriott's marketing, or the 4 bedroom penthouse London, prime location that One Fine Stay might have.
Yeah. Well, and I like that model, and we reference Marriott a lot, but they didn't just go into the vacation rental space and be like, all right, we know what we're doing, and we're going to kick all these professional operators that have been doing this out for 15, 20 years. They really just came in and said, hey, we want to come alongside you. We want to offer you what we have to bring to the table, what we know. And we want you to bring something to the table too, because you know what you're doing. You're obviously meeting these standards, which has always been a great thing with Marriott, is that they have a great standard point. Like, I got secret shopped all the time as a front desk agent and a front office manager. Like, and those requirements they're long. And they have a standard, especially for each brand. And I think that's what they really do bring to the table with that side of vacation rentals. And
well, they do this residences now, right? So you just can, even as an owner, you can buy a residence in this building. You have the experience of an hotel. You can rent it out. So they're renting it out for you. So they go more in experience combining like a normal double room with the residences. So yeah. I think they're developing on this space. Well,
I agree. Awesome. Well, I think that's a pretty dang good first episode. You know what I'm saying? I think we covered a lot. How do you guys feel?
I like it. What a nice talk.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to next week already.
Yeah.
We're like kids on Christmas Eve. We just can't sleep. Well, as you guys can see, subscribe to our channels. Look in Good Morning Hospitality on all platforms. Thank you guys for chatting with us on the live. It's always great to have that type of engagement. And obviously, we'll see you guys next week early. So bring your coffee.
Happy Monday.